So, we're just gonna all agree from the off before this video starts that Vault-Tec are the true evil of the Fallout franchise, right? I mean, it seems that the end of the world was the best thing to ever happen to this company, as it took just mere moments for the facade to slip and for the evil experiments to bloody begin. Promising the air quotes lucky few who could reserve a space in one of their high-tech vaults a life beyond nuclear annihilation, Vault-Tec preyed on the desperate, rich, or foolish enough to think that they could ever barter for a normal life after the bombs dropped. And deep inside these massive underground hubs, every vault was different from the last in terms of layout and provisions, but one thing was terrifyingly constant throughout all of them, and that was that Vault-Tec never cared once about those who resided within. It's what makes stumbling across the vaults in the Fallout franchise so conflicting. There's sure to be some good loot stashed away in there, but what horrors are you going to find within? Well, let's travel deep, my friends, and pray that our light source doesn't dim. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 terrifying Fallout vaults you wish you'd never opened. Number 10. Vault 51, Fallout 76. A true leader is an individual who steps up in the face of crisis. It was this one simple and fairly throwaway line that ended up being the entire downfall of Vault 51, as whilst other vaults were run by overseers made of flesh and blood, this vault was run primarily by a computer known as Zax. Now, Zax's directive was to find the perfect overseer from the residents of Vault 51, which sounds simple enough on paper, but after repeated failures with voters only voting for themselves, class disputes, and all forms of trials in between failing to produce a sole winner, Zax took matters into its own hands. Thanks to a comment made by an advisor to the robot, Zax began instigating challenges and trials for the residents to overcome as a means of finding somebody who would indeed step up and take control. Water supplies were turned off, food withheld, and sleeping arrangements shifted, all of which resulted in more infighting and distrust. Things came to a head when Zax realised that the only true way to have a clear winner was for the residents to kill one another until only one remained. Oh, and to make matters worse, Zax wasn't happy with the overall winner and locked him out of areas of the vault, causing the poor man to sink into a depression. Brilliant. Number 9. Vault 92, Fallout 3. As if to act as the defining example of Vault-Tec screwing with residents by inverting expectations, Vault 92 saw all of its inhabitants given access to the residents because they were talented musicians, only to then subject them to white noise and subliminal messaging experiments. Oh, the irony of having an ear for music, but also having sound be your overall downfall. Now, originally, the Vault used such experiments to see whether residents could be lightly programmed to respond to certain trigger words, and beyond some excessive scratching of the scalp or ear, these tests proved harmless. However, the Vault-Tec's overseer had other intentions, as he was told by Vault-Tec to begin using the white noise tests to create violent and savage warriors who could be used as super soldiers. One subject, according to data logs, tore 3 people in half before being killed, and it took over 20 gunshot wounds to take the resident down. As the experiments continued, the Vault began to split into 2 camps, those affected by the tests who were slowly driven mad, and those looking to escape to the surface. As you arrive to an opened vault door, it's clear that some made it out, but for a time this vault of musicians only made choruses of screams and wails of pain. Number 8. Vault 108, Fallout 3. When you first enter Vault 108, it might not be very clear as to what was going on within its depths, but as you venture further and further in, you'll hear the rustling of movement and the ominous call of Gary. Under no other circumstances would the name Gary be as terrifying as it is here, but thanks to the mass of deranged clones of the man of the same name, Vault 108 feels like a true horror movie come to life. The clones are all hostile to anyone not also a Gary and will attack on sight. Now, it's unclear why one subject was cloned so many times, but you will curse those responsible when one of those comes rushing out at you from the dark. However, what's really interesting is that the Vault is actually a double whammy of Vault-Tec meddling, as not only does the player have to deal with a horde of clones, but upon exploring the Vault, you'll find evidence of another experiment going on. It turns out that the Vault was designed to have faulty power supplies which would break at certain points in time, and that the original Overseer was chosen specifically because they would die soon after the Vault closed. What this Overseer was ordered to do is also unknown, but perhaps it's tied to the Gary situation. It's all very strange and no less terrifying as a result. Number 7. Vault-88, Fallout 4. Okay, so this one might be a bit of a stretch seeing as it's the player who controls the experiments of Vault-88, but this place can become the stuff of absolute nightmares. You see, it's not just what you make your inhabitants do, you also have to provide them shelter, food and activities to keep them occupied. And let's face it, a lot of us probably just did the bare minimum for these people. Dirty mattresses on the floor, food that's laced with drugs and exercise machines that power the Vault and then, well, shock the rider into a temporary coma. All of these choices fell to you. It's a case of absolute power corrupts absolutely. And while I'm sure that there were some overseers who walked the path of benevolence, I bet 99% of the rest of us made this place into an ill-fitting pigsty that was only marginally less dangerous than the world above. Steer clear of this Vault unless you're prepared to have a long, hard look at yourself and ask, oh God, what am I capable of? Number 6. Vault 12, Fallout. Honestly, I don't think that there's a greater example of pure cruelty than Vault 12 in the entire Fallout franchise. And it's not some devious plan that required multiple minds working together or strange noise experiments or hallucinations. All that was required for this was for the Vault door not to close. The residents of Bakersfield flooded Vault 12 when the alarm sounded, and it was at max capacity within minutes, families all scrabbling over one another for safety. And as the bombs tore deep wounds into the earth itself and spread its deadly destruction, the Vault door began to close and then stopped. Those that survived were trapped within the Vault, but were also unable to stop the steady and deadly leak of radiation from seeping inside. It turned out that Vault-Tec simply wanted to study the effects of radiation on the inhabitants, and they got their sick wish. Over the years, the residents became irradiated ghouls, and while many lived on in this new form, it was not a good life. The Vault was finally opened years later, but the damage had been done, and those that chose to stay formed Necropolis, aka the City of the Living Dead. Number 5. Vault 95, Fallout 4. What I personally find so upsetting about this Vault experiment is that on the surface it was actually dealing with a very real problem, that of drug addiction. The inhabitants of this Vault were all drug addicts and were told upon adjusting to life inside that Vault 95 was designed to help them overcome their addictions. The player can find room upon room which is just littered with motivational propaganda and self-help circles, and for 5 years the residents continued this life, helping each other and weaning off addictions as one. And then it happened. One of the residents turned out to be a mole working for Vault-Tec, and upon receiving a signal, unlocked a supply of drugs that had been hidden in the Vault. Chaos ensued, and all the work that was done to remove themselves from drugs dissipated, replaced instead with residents overdosing and murdering each other for what was left. It's a sorry state of affairs to say the least, and a haunting reminder of what happens when human vices are exploited. Number 4. Vault 22, Fallout New Vegas. One of the hardest parts about trying to survive the Mojave, aside from being torn apart by massive rad scorpions or being shot to pieces by raiders, would most definitely be having to carefully manage your supplies. After all, the rolling sand dunes and scorched rock don't exactly provide much in the way of resources. However, if the player stumbles across Vault 22 in Fallout New Vegas, they might drop to their knees and thank those above for this apparently green oasis in the harsh desert. Yet, while the air is oxygenated and the fauna very thick and lush, it's also one of the most terrifying experiences in the entire game. For you see, the plants are alive. The Vault was equipped with tech that would see it advance beyond our current biological and farming capabilities, and the aim was to use these marvels to grow plants en masse that didn't need natural light and could quickly be grown. However, a parasitical fungus arose which poisoned the inhabitants, turning them into horrifying spore carriers who now mindlessly roam the Vault looking for new hosts to infect. If that wasn't bad enough, the thick heat of the Vault and dark, damp conditions mean that those enemies are able to hide just out of sight and ambush the player without notice. So do yourself a favour and bring a shotgun or close-range weapon and be prepared for a ton of jump scares. Number 3. Vault-87, Fallout 3. If there's one thing more synonymous with the Fallout series more than bottle caps and Nuka-Colas, it's super mutants. These massive day-glow brutes tower above average humans, and with the strength of a bomb themselves, they will batter and maim anything that crosses their path. For a long old while, it was unclear how such beings came into existence. Many speculated that they were just humans who had been warped by the cruel wasteland above, and they were kind of right to some degree, because these were indeed people who had undergone horrible changes, but the twist is that they were the result of experiments taking place in Vault-87. Here a team of scientists had the FEV, or Forced Evolutionary Virus, tested upon them in an effort to making a being capable of surviving the irradiated wasteland once known as Earth. The experiment worked, to a degree, manufacturing a hulking mass impervious to pain and sickness, but with the side effect of being violently aggressive. After the paltry security team was wiped out, the experiments escaped. Yet if you thought that was all she wrote for the Vault, trust me, it gets much worse. The FEV makes super mutants sterile, and because they want their race to continue, they now capture other humans and mutate them against their will. Therefore, Vault-87 is a horror show in every sense. It's dangerous, dilapidated, and full of the cries of the unlucky. Number 2. Vault-112, Fallout 3. As veterans of video game worlds, we've likely caused the deaths of our chosen avatars countless times over. However, have we ever stopped to think how horrible it would be to experience death and then respawn anew? Well, that's exactly the scenario that meets you in Vault-112, wherein you discover that after the bombs fell, 85 residents were hooked up to stasis pods and plugged into a virtual reality mainframe that was all controlled by the overseer, Dr. Stanislaus Braun. What was originally meant to allow the residents to exist in forms of utopia until their physical bodies withered and died turned into a living nightmare when the scientists got bored of peace and happiness and decided to murder the other inhabitants again and again, wiping their minds and plopping them back into the simulation. Imagine that, a near eternity of existing only to be hunted down just to satiate someone's boredom. What's worse, thanks to the robots that maintain the vault, your life outside the virtual reality is going to be elongated far beyond normal expectancy. It's absolutely grim. Best hit the light switch on your way out from this one. And number 1, Vault-75, Fallout 4. Jesus, this one is just awful. Built underneath a middle school, Vault-75 was designed to refine the very code that builds up who we are through rigorous exploitation of human genetics. All of the test subjects were under the age of 18, and the moment they arrived inside the vault, they were separated from their parents. And when I say that the fact that the parents then were shot immediately was the only painless moment of this vault, you know that it's going to be bad. The aim was, as with many other vaults, to create a human capable of surviving the arid wastelands above, and the scientists of Vault-75 aimed to do this by harvesting the genes of the strong when they turned 18 and using them to create better air quote stock in the next generation. In order to keep the vault staffed, those that turned 18 and were of high intellect became vault staff, ensuring that this side of the breeding program would also increase with each generation. However, it wasn't just a case of working out every day, as all of the students were constantly pushed to their limits and beyond, and also brainwashed from an early age that this was the only way to live. Thankfully, one older graduate, as the game puts it, helped others to rebel and exit the vault, but their current location is completely unknown. And there we have it. Those were 10 terrifying Fallout vaults you wish you'd never opened. I hope that you enjoyed it, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. And if you want to chat to me further about video games, TV, film, and anything else in between, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ with a 0. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. We are, at the moment, in this current situation, all locked inside our personal vaults, but I hope that you are not driving yourself as insane as some of these experiments would do to their residents. Be kind to yourself, both physically and mentally. And remember, if you're trapped in there with your family, this is a perfect time to get to know them, build bridges, and make sure that you're not breaking them. Because you know what, at the end of the day, friends, family, and professionals in the support industry, all of these people care about you and want you to do well. So go out there, or stay in, as the message would probably read better, and absolutely smash it, you big ledge. As always, I've been Jules, you've been awesome, never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.